Good evening, wanderers of the shadowed paths. Welcome back to the throne of nightmares, where the veil between the living and the forgotten thins to a whisper, and the ghosts of erased histories claw their way into the light. I am your host, the one who lingers in the dim corners of memory, guiding you through tales that history itself dares not remember. Tonight, we delve into a legacy so forbidden, so steeped in blood and silence, that even the annals of America have conspired to bury it deep beneath layers of myth and denial. This is the story of the Everett family, a bloodline woven into the very fabric of the United States, yet systematically erased, cursed to vanish like mist in the dawn, haunting the nation that forgot them. Imagine, if you will, the crackle of autumn leaves underfoot in a forgotten Virginia plantation, where the air hangs heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying secrets. It's the late 18th century, and the wind carries echoes of chains rattling in the distance, the muffled cries of those bound by invisible threads to the land. Here, amid the grandeur of Monticello-inspired estates, a founding father's shadow looms large, not just Thomas Jefferson, the architect of liberty, but the hidden entanglements of his blood with those he enslaved. The Everetts, as we'll call them in this tale, are Severs, for their true name has been scrubbed from records, whispered only in forbidden genealogies. Trace their origins to such a union's a descendant of Sally Hemings, the enslaved woman whose children bore the Jefferson lineage in secrecy. But this is no mere footnote in history. This is a curse born of betrayal, a legacy that twists like a noose around the necks of generations. Picture the scene, a moonless night in 1795, where a young enslaved woman, let's name her Eliza Everett, stands at the edge of a fog-shrouded swamp, her eyes reflecting the flicker of distant torchlight from the big house. She is heavy with child, a child fathered by the master himself, a man who pens words of equality by day and perpetuates chains by night. But Eliza is no passive victim. She carries the old ways, passed down from African ancestors who whispered of spirits and retribution. As labor pains grip her, she calls upon those ancient forces, cursing the bloodline that flows from this unholy union. "May your descendants rise in power," she intones, her voice a rasp against the croak of frogs, only to fall into oblivion. "May they build empires that crumble to dust, families that vanish without trace, erased from the world's memory as we have been erased from freedom." The child is born under that curse, the first of the Everett line, a black bloodline hidden in plain sight, passing as white through generations of careful deception, amassing wealth and influence while the curse simmers beneath. Fast forward through the mists of time, and the Everetts emerge as titans in the shadows of American history. By the 19th century, they are brewers in St. Louis, rivals to the infamous Lemp family, whose own cursed tale of suicides and hauntings mirrors the Everetts' doom. But where the Lemps built their empire on lager, the Everetts distilled spirits, whiskey infused with secrets, bottled in cellars that echoed with the moans of forgotten slaves. Their mansions rose like monoliths, grand halls filled with portraits that seemed to watch with accusing eyes, furniture carved from wood harvested from lands stolen from native tribes. Yet, with each rise came the fall vanishings that defied explanation. Entire branches of the family tree snapped off in the night. The hook, dear listeners, lies in the why. Why were the Everetts erased? Not just by time, but by deliberate acts, records burned, names stricken from censuses, graves unmarked. Was it the curse, manifesting as a spectral force that swallowed them whole? Or was it the nation's own guilt, a collective amnesia to hide the uncomfortable truth that America's founding was built on bloodlines like theirs, black descendants of white patriarchs, whose existence challenged the myth of purity and liberty? As we peel back the layers tonight, you'll feel the chill of those erased souls brushing against your skin, hear their whispers in the silence between my words. They demand to be remembered, and in remembering we invite the nightmare in. Let me paint the atmosphere thicker for you. Envision the Everett ancestral home, a sprawling Gothic revival mansion on the banks of the Mississippi, its towers piercing the perpetual twilight like fingers grasping for redemption. Ivy clings to the stone walls like veins, pulsing with the lifeblood of secrets. Inside, rooms stretch into infinity, lit by flickering gas lamps that cast long shadows dancing like tormented spirits. The air is thick with the scent of aged oak and faint mildew, mingled with the metallic tang of old blood. Floors creak under invisible footsteps, and in the dead of night, you might hear the distant wail of a child, an echo from Eliza's curse, forever unborn in the annals of history. The family's ascent began innocently enough, or so it seemed. Jonathan Everett, the first acknowledged patriarch, though his skin bore the subtle hue of his mixed heritage, lightened through generations, arrived in Stane, Lewis in 1830, fleeing the whispers of his Virginia roots. He built a distillery that rivaled the greats, his whiskey flowing like rivers of gold into saloons across the expanding frontier. But prosperity invited envy, and with it, the curse stirred. Whispers spread of strange occurrences, workers vanishing in the cellars, their screams echoing up from the limestone caves below. Reminiscent of the Lemp family's own haunted caverns, Jonathan dismissed them as folklore, but deep down, he knew the bloodline was tainted. As the Civil War loomed, the Everetts positioned themselves as Unionists, profiting from supply contracts while secretly aiding escaped slaves along hidden routes. Hypocrisy, perhaps, or a desperate bid to atone. Yet, the curse cared not for redemption. Jonathan's wife, Amelia, vanished one stormy night in 1859, her bed empty. A single blood-stained handkerchief left behind. Search parties combed the riverbanks, but she was gone, erased as if she'd never existed. Records later showed her name scrubbed from family Bibles, her portrait removed from the walls. The family carried on, but the void grew. By the turn of the century, the Everetts had infiltrated politics, much like the Kennedys would later. Charismatic figures with dark undercurrents. Elias Everett, Jonathan's grandson, ran for Senate, his speeches ringing with calls for equality that masked his own hidden ancestry. But on election eve 1904, his entire immediate family, wife, 2 sons, and infant daughter, disappeared from their campaign train en route to Washington. The car was found empty, meals half-eaten, as if they'd stepped into another realm. Newspapers buzzed briefly, then silence. Official records claimed a tragic accident, bodies lost to a ravine, but no ravine was ever searched, erased. This pattern repeats, a chilling rhythm: rise, vanish, forget. The Everetts touched every era, the Gilded Age with their industrial might, the Roaring Twenties with bootleg empires echoing the Lemps' prohibition woes, even the Civil Rights era, where a descendant marched in Selma, only to vanish days later, his name struck from voter rolls. Each disappearance leaves traces: an abandoned vehicle, like the Jamison family's truck in Oklahoma, bodies sometimes found years later, skeletal and unclaimed, like the Cowden murders in Oregon. But always the erasure follows. Documents altered, memories faded. Why does this grip us so? Because in the Everett legacy, we see our own nation's underbelly, the black bloodlines of founding fathers like Jefferson, Madison, Washington. Descendants hidden, denied, cursed by the very system that exalted their white halves. Folklore blends here with fact: voodoo curses from New Orleans, like Marie Laveau's tomb, Native American hexes from stolen lands, akin to the curse of Chocorua. The Everetts embody them all, a forbidden tapestry that history tried to unravel. As we transition into the main narrative, feel the weight of those erased souls pressing in. The throne awaits, and the nightmares are just beginning. Stay with me, for in uncovering this legacy, we might awaken something that should have remained buried. Now, let us descend deeper into the abyss of this tale, where the air grows colder and the shadows take form. In part I of our main narrative, we begin unfolding the Everett family's story in meticulous detail, introducing the key characters, places, and events that set the stage for their haunted downfall. Picture the scene as if you're there, the damp chill seeping into your bones, the faint echo of chains in the wind. Our story truly ignites in 1830, when Jonathan Everett, the progenitor of the visible line, steps off a steamboat onto the muddy banks of St. Louis. Jonathan is a man of contradictions, tall, broad-shouldered, with skin pale enough to pass in white society, yet eyes that hold the depth of ancestral sorrow. Born in 1805 on a Virginia plantation, he is the grandson of Eliza Everett, the cursed child of that fateful swamp birth. Raised in secrecy, Jonathan flees east after discovering a hidden diary revealing his Jefferson Hemings heritage, a bloodline that could shatter his fragile standing. He carries with him a small vial of swamp water, a talisman from his grandmother, meant to ward off the curse, but perhaps only amplifying it. St. Louis in those days is a frontier boomtown, alive with the clamor of traders, the stench of river mud and horse manure mingling with the sweet ferment of breweries. Jonathan settles in the bustling Cherokee Street district, near the natural limestone caves that would become infamous in Lemp lore. He starts small, a modest distillery, using recipes infused with African herbs smuggled from his past. His whiskey, dubbed Everett's Eclipse, gains renown for its smooth burn and hallucinatory aftertaste. Whispers say it reveals glimpses of the dead. Enter Amelia Thorne, Jonathan's wife, a key character whose fragility mirrors the family's doom. Amelia is a delicate beauty from Boston, with porcelain skin and raven hair. Drawn to Jonathan's brooding intensity, they meet at a riverfront ball in 1835, where the air is thick with cigar smoke and the twang of fiddles. She, an abolitionist daughter, sees in him a kindred spirit. He sees salvation from his isolation. They marry in a lavish ceremony at the old cathedral, but the night of their wedding, Amelia dreams of a woman in chains, whispering, "The blood will call." She wakes screaming, a harbinger ignored. Their home, the Everett Mansion, becomes a central place in our narrative, a sprawling edifice built in 1840 on a bluff overlooking the Mississippi. Inspired by Gothic architecture, it features turrets that pierce the sky like accusatory fingers, secret passages rumored to connect to underground slave escape routes, and a cellar labyrinth extending into the caves. The mansion's library holds forbidden tomes, genealogies tracing back to Jefferson, voodoo grimoires from New Orleans, and Native American artifacts looted from Chocorua, like curses in New England. The air inside is perpetually cool, scented with aged paper and faint decay, as if the house breathes the rot of secrets. Jonathan and Amelia's children arrive amid growing tension. First, Elias, born in 1837, a sharp-minded boy with his father's eyes, destined for politics. Then Clara in 1840, ethereal and artistic, who paints portraits that seem to age while their subjects remain young. Finally, young Thomas in 1845, a sickly child haunted by visions of vanishing people. The family thrives outwardly. Jonathan's distillery expands to 5 city blocks, rivaling the Lemps, employing hundreds, including freed slaves who whisper of the curse in hushed tones. But the events that build suspense begin subtly. In 1848, during a cholera outbreak that ravages St. Louis, a worker vanishes in the cellars. His lantern is found flickering, but no body. Jonathan dismisses it as desertion, but Amelia hears scratching in the walls at night. Tension mounts as the family hosts lavish parties, the mansion alive with laughter and crystal clinking. Yet guests report seeing shadowy figures in mirrors, apparitions of enslaved ancestors, their faces twisted in accusation. The turning point comes in 1859, on a sultry August evening. The Everetts are at the height of power. Jonathan advises on union matters. Elias apprentices in law. But the curse awakens fully. Amelia, alone in the mansion, while the family attends a river festival, vanishes. The house is found in disarray, an overturned chair in the parlor, a trail of water leading to the cellar, swamp water, impossibly. Search parties comb the caves, torches casting grotesque shadows on dripping walls, but she is gone. Jonathan's grief is palpable. He ages overnight, his hair turning white as he pores over the family diary, reading Eliza's curse aloud in a voice broken by sobs. Elias steps up, marrying Sophia Langford, a fiery suffragette from New York, introducing new blood but fresh vulnerabilities. Sophia brings her own secrets, descent from Dudleytown curse survivors, where entire villages vanished under a nobleman's hex. Their union produces children: Marcus in 1862, a warrior spirit who will fight in the Civil War, and Lydia in 1865, a medium who communes with ghosts. As the war rages, the Everetts profit from whiskey supplies to Union troops, but haunting events escalate. In 1863, Thomas, the youngest, disappears during a picnic near the river. One moment he's chasing fireflies, the next, only his hat floats on the water. No body recovered. Clara, distraught, paints his portrait, but the canvas warps, the boy's image fading daily. Jonathan dies in 1867. Found in the cellar with a vial clutched in his hand, his face contorted in terror. Official cause heart failure, but whispers say he saw Amelia's ghost, beckoning him into the dark. The mansion falls to Elias, who buries the secrets deeper, altering records to whiten the family tree further, erasing black ancestors to secure political ambitions. The narrative builds tension through these vanishings, each layered with atmospheric dread, the creak of floorboards in empty rooms, the scent of swamp mud in dry halls, distant wails like those from Brunswick Springs' cursed waters. The family clings to normalcy, hosting séances where Lydia channels Eliza, her voice a chilling raspy. The erasure has begun. By 1900, Elias is a senator, his mansion a hub for elite gatherings. But the curse looms larger. Marcus returns from war scarred, vanishing in 1870 during a hunting trip, his rifle found unfired amid native artifacts suggesting Chocorua's revenge. Lydia marries a Lemp rival, blending curses, her children born with cleft chins like Clausen's hex. As part eye closes, we teeter on the edgy. Elias's family boards that fateful 1904 train, laughter echoing as the locomotive chugs into the night. Little do they know, the vanishings are just beginning, the erasure accelerating. The atmosphere thickens. Feel it, listeners. The cold breath on your neck. The sense that history itself is watching, waiting to swallow you whole. Deeper we plunge into the heart of the nightmare, where conflicts erupt like storms over the Mississippi and haunting events unravel the Everett tapestry thread by thread. In Part 2, we deepen the story, layering chilling moments that grip your soul, the tension coiling tighter with each revelation. The year is 1904, and Elias Everett stands at the pinnacle. Senator, philanthropist, his hidden bloodline fueling a drive for reform. But the train disappearance shatters everything. The car, found empty near a Illinois ravine, meals congealed on plates, luggage untouched. No signs of struggle, yet a faint swamp odor lingers. Newspapers scream, "Mystery of the vanishing senator!" But within weeks, stories fade, records altered. Elias's Senate seat filled as if he'd never existed. Surviving relatives, Lydia's line, inherit the mantle. Her son, Harlan Everett, born 1885, takes the reins, a brooding industrialist expanding the distillery into a national empire during Prohibition. Harlan marries Evelyn, a New Orleans belle with voodoo ties, reminiscent of Marie Laveau. Their home, the mansion, now hums with bootleg operations, secret tunnels buzzing with runners. But conflicts brew. Harlan's ambition clashes with Evelyn's mysticism. She warns of the curse, performing rituals in the cellar with chicken blood and chants. Haunting events intensify. In 1922, during a speakeasy party, guests hear screams from the walls. Harlan's brother, Victor, vanishes mid-toast, his glass shattering on the floor. Search reveals nothing but a claw mark on the banister, like from Clausen's curse. Evelyn dreams of Eliza, who reveals the blood demands payment for erasure. The Great Depression hits, and the Everett's wealth crumbles like the Lemp Brewery. Harlan, desperate, forges alliances with Kennedy like political figures, but tragedy strikes. In 1933, Evelyn and their daughter, Rose, disappear during a swamp tour in Louisiana. Boat found adrift, life vests intact. Harlan spirals, locking himself in the library, poring over family lore. He uncovers ties to erased black bloodlines, descendants of Madison and Washington, hidden in folklore, their vanishings mirroring the Everetts. World War II brings resurgence. Harlan's son, Theodore, born 1910, serves as a codebreaker, his intellect sharp but haunted. Theodore marries Clara Sue, a descendant of Dudleytown survivors, compounding curses. Post-war, they thrive in politics, Theodore eyeing the White House. But 1950 brings conflict. A family reunion at the mansion turns nightmarish. Amid laughter, Theodore's siblings vanish one by one, first in the garden, then the cellar. Bodies never found, echoing Jamison and Cowden cases. Vivid descriptions heighten the chill. The mansion's halls now echo with ghostly footsteps, portraits weeping blood. Theodore hears whispers, erased, forgotten. He investigates, unearthing documents proving Jefferson paternity, but attempts to publish lead to threats, history's guardian silencing him. The 1960s deepen the horror. Theodore's children march for civil rights, confronting their heritage. Son Malcolm vanishes in 1963 after a Selma speech, his car abandoned like the Salomons. Daughter Vivian becomes a medium, channeling vanished relatives in seances where tables levitate. Voices cry of curses from native land stolen. By the 1970s, the family fragments. Theodore dies in 1975, accident in the caves, body mangled, as if clawed. His widow Clara sells parts of the empire, but the mansion remains a cursed anchor. Grandchildren scatter, but vanishings pursue. A whole branch in 1980, like the McStay family, truck left in a desert. Chilling moments abound, a child seeing a ghostly woman in chains, a mirror reflecting vanished faces, swamp water flooding basements inexplicably. Conflicts peak in internal betrayals, siblings accusing each other of invoking the curse for gain. As the 21st century dawns, the last Everetts hide, but the curse endures. A 2013 vanishing echoes Bryce Lospicer, a descendant, drives into oblivion. The narrative leaves us haunted, the family's doom inexorable, blending personal tragedy with national shame. Now, let us step back from the narrative's grip and explore the real history, legends, and background that underpin this eerie tale. Here, fact blends with folklore, creating an unsettling authenticity that makes the Everett legacy feel all too possible. Educational yet laced with dread, this section uncovers the forbidden truths America tried to erase, the roots of erased bloodlines traced to the founding fathers themselves. Thomas Jefferson, architect of the Declaration of Independence, fathered children with his enslaved woman Sally Hemings. DNA evidence in 1998 confirmed what oral histories long whispered. Black descendants like the Hemings Jefferson line exist, hidden by shame and systemic racism. Similarly, James Madison and George Washington had enslaved families whose blood mingled, their lineages scrubbed from official records. Events like the Black Heritage Trails, Raced Bloodlines, panel in 2025 highlight these descendants, reclaiming narratives of forced labor that built the nation. Cultural context, slavery's legacy of separated families, as in the Last Scene project where ads sought lost kin post-emancipation. Vanishing families weren't myth, auction blocks tore them apart, erasing bonds. Folklore amplifies this. Voodoo curses from New Orleans, like Marie Laveau's tomb, where the dead curse the living for injustices. Native American curses add layers. The curse of Chocorua, a Pequawket chief's dying hex on settlers for his son's death, leading to blighted lands, similar to Brunswick Springs, where an Abenaki woman's curse doomed profiteers. Dudleytown, Connecticut, the village of the damned, saw settlers vanish under a treasonous noble's curse, blending British folklore with American wilderness dread. Industrial curses, the Lemp family, St. Louis brewers, suffered multiple suicides. Frederick in 1901, William Sarr in 1904, others following a mid-Prohibition ruin. Their mansion haunted by ghosts, mirrors erased empires built on exploitation. Political dynasties, the Kennedys, America's cursed family, JFK and RFK assassinated. Plane crashes, lobotomies, echo the Everetts. Ted Kennedy pondered an awful curse, post-Chappaquiddick. Real vanishings, Jamison families 2009, Oklahoma, found skeletal in 2013, Cowden murders 1974, Oregon unsolved, Salomon family 1982, California tied to a suspect but bodies missing. Cultural trauma, poor whites in the South, forgotten like in the South's poor whites are still a forgotten people. Black land theft, as in the forgotten history of what California stole from black families. These erasures aren't accidental, they're systemic, hiding America's foundational sins. Folklore blends Clawson's curse, 1661, Rhode Island, a dying man's hex causing cleft chens, the thrice cursed house in folklore, plagued by tragedies. In U.S. context, these manifest as haunted mansions, vanishing towns, eerie authenticity. Real cases like the McStay family 2010, California, vanished then found buried, or the Jack family 1989, Canada, but similar U.S. border cases. History's amnesia, Civil War families severing ties, erasing enemy kin. This context educates, while chilling. The Everetts aren't fiction. Their amalgam of real erased lives, curses born of injustice, haunting us still. Venturing into the psychological depths, we analyze the symbolic layers of the Everett legacy, connecting to universal fears, cultural trauma, and human nature. Ominous and intellectual, this exploration reveals why such tales haunt us. Symbolically, the curse represents repressed guilt. Eliza's invocation mirrors America's denial of mixed bloodlines, the Orne drop rule erasing black heritage. Vanishings symbolize oblivion, the fear of being forgotten, a primal terror. The mansion stands for the psyche's cellars as subconscious, filled with buried secrets. Psychologically, the family embodies intergenerational trauma, slavery's wounds passed down, manifesting as curses. Like Kennedy tragedies, its hubris clashing with fate. Everett's ambition invites downfall. Universal fierce death, loss, erasure. Vanishing families tap into abandonment anxiety. Curses evoke powerlessness against unseen forces. Cultural trauma, erased bloodlines reflect America's original sin, slavery, genocide. Folklore like Laveau's or Chocorua processes collective guilt, turning history into haunting. Human nature, the drive to hide truths, as in record alterations, shows denial's destructiveness. Yet, resilience shines in descendants reclaiming stories. Ominous tone in analyzing, we risk invoking the curse. Knowledge as forbidden fruit, leaving us haunted by echoes of the erased. As our tale draws to a chilling close, we summarize the Everett legacy, a bloodline cursed by injustice, rising only to vanish, erased by history's hand. Lingering question, is the curse real or America's collective shadow? The final lines echo, in forgetting, we invite the ghosts to return. Sleep uneasily, for the throne of nightmares never truly releases its hold.